Great. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you got a good meal break or was able to get a little time away from the screen. I'm excited to spend a little time with everyone now talking about how we're changing the way we can do RFID solutions. I shouldn't say changing, but adding to it. Before I get too deep into it, those who have attended other sessions of mine know that I like to start with a joke, add a little humor, especially just coming back from our break. I'm hoping that seems appropriate. So let me tell you a little story about a time when a manager, an engineer, and a programmer were all in a car together. They were driving up a hill, and right as they crested that hill, the brakes went out. The car went convening down the hill and finally came to a stop at the bottom. The three got out and went to chat about what they should do next. The manager immediately said, "We need to call a meeting. We should get a forum together and we should decide what to do next." The engineer said, no. Give me a pocket knife and some duct tape and I'll have us back on the road in a minute. And the programmer said, "Well, guys, don't you think we should push it back up to the top of the hill and see if it does it again?" I tell that joke primarily because I want to set the stage for where we're going right now. Historically, creating RFID solutions has come with some complexity. When we start with programming, it's the basics of writing an application. It's not just your standard Java or C# app, but it's one that requires a diverse skill set in LLRP SDKs and usually custom coding very similar sense algorithms. Engineering is no different. If you want to engineer an on-site deployment, it probably requires some sophisticated installation skill sets. You're not just talking about someone who's going to drill a few holes and screw in a few bolts, but you need to configure the system in its entirety. And managing that deployment over time is also equally complex. You need to have an IT skill set, one who's available not just for monitoring, but also for troubleshooting. In this session, I really want to discuss how Zebra is working to break down those barriers and make those deployments easier so that you can get the most advantage out of your RFID solutions. So hopefully you can bear with my humor a little there. I promise not to keep it up, but as we dive into the Cloud Connect offering, I wanted to start with my background. I've deployed a lot of these RFID readers, ones that you see here in the FX7500 to your right, or the FX9600, our newest reader, there on the left. When I deployed those solutions, one of the problems I've run into is that regardless of the value of the solution created, we're always dependent on the quantity or quality of the tags that these readers are going to sense. In this, in the world, say 10 years ago, when we were deploying these, source tagging wasn't that common, meaning that when an item that you wanted to track, whether that be a good, a product or an asset, wasn't always available or wasn't always tagged. So no matter how good our solution was, we were still dead in the water. But it's 2020 now. And of course, a lot has changed. We've all come up with unique challenges based on what the world has brought this year. But one of the positives is that source tagging is a lot more popular. That means we're going to find more and more items tagged with RFID right as they leave their manufacturer or as they go into use within an enterprise. Examples of that might be the clothing tag, price tags on the clothing that we buy all the time. More and more clothing, not the whole clothing itself, but the price tag on the clothing is coming in tagged and encoded with an SG10 value. Same is true for high-end medical devices. More and more, we're tracking those as those become valuable and become time sensitive, environment sensitive. So now we see products out of the medical industry being source tagged quite frequently. But we don't just see it there in products. We also see it in things like shipping containers. The SSCC standard that's used out of GS1 is popular in tagging specific crates or boxes in transit. Same is true for disposable assets or reusable assets, whether that be like a medical drug pump that might be reused many times, or an asset that an enterprise puts into use, whether that be a shopping cart or a laptop. So RFID is really growing in opportunity, and Zebra is introducing or has introduced Cloud Connect for RFID. In fact, it was introduced just last month. It's available for all of your existing FX readers, your 7500s and your 9600s, as long as they're running the latest firmware that was available in the September release. Let's dive into what Cloud Connect gets you. So if you've deployed an RFID solution before, one of those initial steps is getting a server on the ground. Generally, that means a Windows box installed on-prem that has access to the readers through the local network. It also includes configuring it with the proper SDKs, so you can speak to the readers using that LLRP libraries. And it probably means deploying your custom application to that server also. So maybe you're running Windows Server, Windows 10, or maybe you're still on Windows 7. But we know that generally it means you're managing a Windows box in addition to the readers that you've installed for your solution. What does that long-term management look like? I mean, if you're like me, you've probably had to drive across the city before to go on site to touch a reader that's not active, that's not responding the way it's supposed to be. Maybe that means you had to get on a flight, go to a different country, maybe a different state, get out on the road even farther just to go fix that problem. Depending on how big your customer base is, that might even mean you need to take a flight to a different continent. So a lot of travel just to get on-prem to solve a simple problem. It has occurred for me before, and I'm guessing for some of those here have also experienced that. And this is all just to manage a reader. Well, let's say you've got that covered, that's no problem. Well, once it's up and running, what happens if your antenna configuration wasn't exactly what you thought? Maybe you need to add a different filter mode to one of your antennas. Again, it's getting back in your car, or getting back on a plane, or traveling, however you travel back to that destination. It means time away from your desk into the field. And while that can be fun, it also can come at times when it's not most opportune. So once you've got it deployed, how do you keep it running? Well, one of those is connectivity from the cloud. I'm guessing that if you've got if you've got a system on-prem, you've got data then that's also locked on-prem. So what do? Write custom code, again, to export it from the prem into your cloud. And then what do you do in the cloud? Do you write an application so you can do cloud storage, write it to a database? Then you're probably creating APIs on top of that so you can retrieve that data out. It's a lot of complexity that goes into those full solutions that get us the value that we see in RFID. Put all of that together, you still got one other problem. You're getting a 24 byte value. That's just like a license plate on a car. I may see a car going down the road and I know how the government identifies that car because there's a license plate publicly visible to me, but I don't know anything else about it. I don't know the owner, for example. So we provide decoding libraries that you can turn those byte arrays into more meaningful values. I referenced earlier that GS1 standard, that's one of them. Perhaps the item that you're looking at, you don't just want to know is E4873, but instead you want to know that that's a plush zebra toy. In fact, you might want to know that you have 5 of them in stock. So it's taking advantage of what those values are that's in the bytes that you see. I'll get deeper into code. Just wanted to give you a quick overview of where we're at and what this offering gives you based on the complexity I've seen in my deployments and perhaps you've run across in yours. So getting your reader connected to Zebra, and what does that take? Well, connectivity has never been easier. As I mentioned earlier, it's available today on our firmware. So if you've downloaded our September release, you're probably already noticed that there's a cloud option under connection. So using that, it's pretty easy to get your reader enrolled. And you do that using your existing developer account. If you're a developer on this call today, I'm hoping that you have an account at developer.zebra.com. If not, I encourage you to get one, but by doing so, you get the ability to enroll your reader. Now you do need to enroll in the RFID Cloud Connect program, so I'd encourage you to connect with your Zebra account representative in order to do so. But if you want, it's available. Download the latest firmware, use your developer account, put the two together, and you can get a claim token. That claim token allows you to securely connect your reader to the cloud and for it to be controlled only by you and those you delegate ownership to. So now that you're connected to the cloud, let's talk about what that actually gets you. Well, the first one would be managing your reader. This question came up earlier today, and that was in Dan Poliana's talk. about all the new data services that are available. Folks were asking, can I manage my devices? Well, with Cloud Connect, you can manage your FX readers. We have a full suite of APIs that you can use at your disposal. I'll do a quick walkthrough of those APIs in slides, and then we'll do a deep dive into that. The APIs that you get from managing your reader really come in 3 sets. You have reader health and information. Those are things like operational statistics, how much CPU usage is going on, what's my current RAM, what's my flash disk size at, just most of the, what's my uptime, what antennas are enabled, some of your basic operational statistics that go with an FX reader. In addition to that, you can get component information. I mentioned the firmware earlier, 3.7.26 is currently available, but that encompasses kind of a large version number. If you want to find out more about the individual components running on your reader, you can query the API to pull down all of the firmware versions, or I should say all of the component versions which make up the firmware installed and the hardware that you're running. In addition to reader health, you can configure your reader. You know, when you're deploying your reader, one of the first things you have to do is set up its network. Maybe it has a DHCP address or it needs to have a static IP. You're going to want to do that before you connect to cloud, before you enable Cloud Connect, because you do have to get to the cloud. But what's your functional? Maybe you have a need to change your network configuration, or you've added a new DNS server. This is going to give you the ability to configure the basic connectivity in your reader. Of course, be careful with that, because with power comes with great responsibility. So you could disconnect your reader from the internet. As long as you know what you're doing, you're going to have the power to control your reader through your network settings. But that one's probably just an initial setup, or maybe a once in a while use. One that may be more prevalent is our config XML. For those of us who worked with the FX readers before, we've probably configured this file. It's definitely an advanced setting, but if you want to do a mass deployment, this is going to give you the ability to easily push that config XML to all of your readers. It also gives you the ability to query it, so you can see what a reader's doing. If you'd like to toggle one, you can send it, or toggle a setting in one, you can send that config file to a specific reader. The last configuration is the read modes. We haven't touched a lot on that today because it's pretty new, and I'm going to dive deeper into that as we get towards the end of this session. So we can also configure, or we can also invoke actions on our reader. The actions kind of that you see listed are pretty straightforward. You can start and stop tag reads. Maybe you only want your reader active for a particular part of the day. You can reboot the reader. That's specifically useful if you've just updated a setting that requires a reboot. You know, some of our advanced settings on our readers do require a restart. You can toggle the app LED that's on the reader. I've seen that used in many different use cases. One is just handy for identifying a reader. If you've got 10 of them hanging in a ceiling and you're not really sure which one ends in A, B, C, F, or 2, you're looking around thinking, well, gosh, do I have to go peek at all readers? Instead, you could just send it a LED blink and have it blink for 3 minutes. The one that's blinking red when you look up in the ceiling is the one that you're looking to diagnose. You can also toggle the GPO. Perhaps you want to use some of the GPO features on our reader to indicate different things. A tag red was read in a zone that shouldn't be there. Maybe you toggle your GPO to light an LED stack red, so folks know that something that's not appropriate in the room has been sensed. Last one is my favorite one of them all. Any of us who have updated our FX readers, especially back before version 2.7, know that it has been cumbersome in the past. Now we've long since passed 2.7, and it's pretty easy to update your reader today using your browser, but you have to connect to the reader, have physical access to it. You have to have downloaded the firmware, have it available on your machine, and then pass it up to the reader. Now all of it can be done with a simple action. You can query using an API to find out what versions of the firmware are available on your reader today, and you can push new versions of that firmware to your reader. So a lot of options for configuration and management. Well, let's take a deep dive into what that looks like on the dev portal and how you can take a look at these APIs yourself. I'll just switch my screens here. I thought I was real cool with that, but give me 1 second. There we go. So Dan referenced earlier today that we can go to developer.com/APIs. That's a great place to get a start and a look at all of the APIs that are available in the Zebra portfolio. Let me just update that. Oh, well, sorry about that. Forgot to log out of Teams. So if we go /APIs, we're going to see our API catalog. Easy way to get there. You can also do it by going from products, platforms,
Ben,
and Zebra Data Services.
we still don't see your screen, Ben.
I thought you were
Let's
waiting.
see if we can't bring it back. Did
Yeah.
it end?
I think so.
How long ago did it end? I apologize. It definitely says I'm sharing my screen, so I might have a, one of those
Just when you
internet
switch
hiccups
over
that
and-
happens.
Yeah, just right when you were mentioning it, Dan.
Great. Let's see here. Thanks. Give me one moment here. We'll get this guy going. Well, I apologize for the hiccup. It really doesn't want to share on that particular screen. Luckily, I've got 2 desktops here, so let's see what we can do with the second one. Well, I guess I should have just stuck to slideware today. I apologize, folks. Zoom has definitely poo-pooed me. If you would be so kind as to take a quick 1-minute break, I'll end my Zoom, restart it, and be right back, unless you can see my screen.
We are patient.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate
These
it.
things happen. This is pretty good. We've gone this far today without any major snags, so all good. Looks like Ben's back. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please post those in the Q&A. Hey, Ben, you are back.
Great. Let's find out how good this screen share works. I thought I was a Zoom expert by now, but I guess I should have known better. Are you guys able to see my screen?
We can see it. It says the Zoom link, open link.
Great. Let's get right back to the real browser at hand. Okay, so we've got
Nice
our,
open view. There you go.
we've got Chrome up in front of us again here. I'm hoping that you guys all see that. You can see that we've gone to developer.api.zebra.com. Sorry, developer.zebra.com/APIs. And if we scroll down here on the right, we're going to see Cloud Connect for RFID. This is the API tile that will get you into the full offering. You'll see some detail. Wow, now it downloads it. That's funny. It's trying to download the web page for me. I love live demos, huh? Good there. Let's see. Well, luckily I have more than one browser, so let's just do it on a different browser. And if we go to /APIs, we're going to see our Cloud Connect APIs available here. Well, luckily I have more than one browser. That is the joy of software development, right? We get the option to use many. Let's see. Many different tools in our tool stack. So we'll go, you get to see, hopefully this is burning this URL into your heads, hopefully not in a bad way. Let's go over to Cloud Connect for RFID. Oh. And it looks like I've got a pretty epic fail on my demo. All right, folks. Well, give me just one other second. As I try to remember the URL by name. There we go. Luckily, I got a good memory. Here we go. So if you go and you click on the Cloud Connect for RFID, I trust you guys got better user skills than I do today, or maybe the demo gods will not be against you. If we, let's take a look at our reader management APIs here. So sorry again for the disruption there. I guess I'm just not going to use my mouse. And we can see that when we click on our tile, my mouse doesn't seem to want to be very nice to me today. I'm not sure who. Hopefully Hopefully people are kind of do it, but you can see the list of the APIs that I talked about. So by going to device ID/version or status, that's where we're getting some of the information we talked about, such as our reader components or operational statistics. In the actions here, you can see those APIs that are available to do a device, to do a reboot, toggle your GPO, app LED, start and stop your reading, and then of course the favorite that I mentioned, the over-the-air software updates. And at the bottom, you can see the APIs that are available for your configuration. You guys can still hear, see my screen, I'm hoping. Good. Just
Yes,
doing
we
one
can.
last check, since this computer is really teasing me right now. Let's go back one more. Sorry, I had to remember which browser I brought this up in. The other thing, you'll see a video there, probably far more succinct than I am, given my failures in my computer, but you can hit play if you want a more deeper dive. And then I really want to highlight that this set of APIs also comes with a Postman collection. So if you've used Postman before, you'll know just how easy it is to test out APIs. We have a full Postman collection available for you to download in GitHub. And then that you can use just to give you a quick look through what that would be like. If I have a reader here, well, actually we'll need to register that reader, which we'll do just a little bit later as we go through the presentation. So since the demo gods are not being very nice to me, we'll go right back to that slideshow. Appreciate you bearing with me on that one. But if you could see, if you go to developer.zebra.com/APIs, you click on the Cloud Connect for RFID tile, you'll be able to look at all the APIs we just looked at for configuring and monitoring your reader. But that's not the only thing you get if you enroll your reader in Cloud Connect. As we talked about, there's that eventing from the edge. So capturing the events that occur on the reader, capturing them without the need of a Windows server or without the need of an on-prem server, and then giving you the option to deliver them to the cloud, eventually hitting your data center or going into cloud data storage. So let's talk about what those events look like. As you remember in the reader management part that we were just looking at, one of those configurable options was read modes. So read modes is something that's new to the FX reader that allows it to use some of those common sense algorithms to detect tag presence and to send that to the cloud. Those modes come in three: simple, inventory, and portal. We'll dive a little deeper into those. And then once you, not just with the basic mode that we spoke about, but then you can also add filtering on the edge. That may be things like configuring which antennas you want to be active, or configuring some of the filter criteria, such as I only want tags that start with EE. You can also do filtering in the cloud. We do that through JQ syntax. So you may say, I only want tags that come from, or that have a gain of -55 or higher. So you're really looking for something that's within a specific range or as close to the antenna. Or you may do it on the enrichment. As I mentioned, when the data flows into Savannah, if it's in one of the decodable formats, we'll decode it and provide the enriched data set with it. So you may say, I only want things that are SGTIN items, or I may only want tags that are in SSCC format. So you can filter, you can configure reader for specific read modes. You can then do filtering on the edge. So going out the network, there's only specific tags or specific criteria. Then once it arrives at the cloud, before you're going to send it to a webhook of your choice, you may want it to meet a specific criteria. So your reader may be sending up events for all different types of tags, and you could attach several webhooks to it. One may be a mission critical webhook. Says if something like this shows up, we need to send it off to our processing unit right away. Or perhaps it's one that you just archive in your data system so that you can look back on it if you need to do any analysis later in the business flow. Let's talk about those events a little more in depth. So simple is a one-time identification. First time it's seen, the reader's going to tell you about it. It's a very low chatter. You're not going to hear a lot over the internet about it. Once you get the event, it's going to send it one time. That payload is about 500 bytes, and you won't hear about the tag again. The second is inventory. I call this heartbeat style. There's probably a lot of ways to describe it, but essentially you're setting up an interval on how often do you want to hear about the reader and the tags that it's seen during that interval. So it's not a point in time where it says all tags read right now, but it's saying over the duration, I'll use 60 seconds as an example, all tags that were seen over that duration of 60 seconds. It's going to give you 3 pieces of information. It's going to give you the tag EPC. It's going to tell you how many times it read that tag during the duration. And it's going to tell you what the max gain was during that duration. And then there's portal. Portal's a lot like inventory, but it's GPI triggered, meaning your reader is not reading all the time, but only when an external GPI event triggers the reader does it go into read mode for your configurable time frame, reads all tags, and then reports again those 3 key pieces of information: the EPC value that was read, the number of times it's read, and its max RSSI. Edge of belt filtering is really about 3 things: antenna, interval, and filter. I have a couple examples here to dive into it, but antenna seems pretty simple. Our readers come configured in 4 and 8 port configurations, so you can choose which antennas you want. I would highlight that currently your read mode is for all antennas. So you can set to disable one, saying I don't want to hear about any tags read on antenna 4, but you can't put 3 antennas in simple and 5 antennas in inventory, for example. It is one processing event for the whole reading. The interval, like we talked about with inventory, is how often do I want to get a heartbeat every 10 seconds? Do I want a heartbeat every minute? Or do I want a heartbeat every hour? I mean, it's configurable by minutes and seconds, so you can choose the values that make the most sense to you. Some of that comes down to network traffic. How much bandwidth do I have and how often do I want it reported? And the other comes down to business criticality of the solution. This is something I need to know about right away, and I need heartbeats, on the minute, every minute, and you'll do your data science from there. And then there's filtering. For example, I used, do you want tags that start with EE only as an example? So if I'm going to pass that configuration down, it's really pretty simple. I'll show you the JSON here. On the left, you can see the mode. It's in simple mode. I just want it to apply it to antenna 1, and I have no filters. On the right-hand side, we see that I want it in inventory mode. I want that applied to antennas 2, 3, and 4, and I'd like it to happen every 20 seconds. So the configuration process is really pretty simple. You grab the JSON, you put in the configuration properties that you want, and then you use your Postman or your custom application code to send it down to the reader. When the reader is there, you're going to start receiving events. We mentioned a little bit earlier about webhooks, and I'll show you how to configure those in a minute, at least if my computer behaves. But if not, I promise you there's a good video on the developer portal to walk you through it. Well, once you've got a webhook subscribed for your readers, you're going to get events that look like this. You can see some key information. There's always the event ID. That's going to be for audit tracking, right? If you need to call a specific event and look back, you're going to be able to pull it out of your records. But in addition to that, you get the timestamp. That is the timestamp on the reader. When you enroll your reader, it's really important that you sync its clock with an NTP server. Because it's connected to the cloud, we need to make sure that we have that real-time time sync enabled. So you get the time on the reader, which should be natural real time. You're going to get the device ID. I did X out my device ID for privacy, but you obviously would not see an XXXXX in your device ID. Then you're going to get the tag that was read, its specific EPC value, the reads, the RSID, RSSI, and the antenna ID. So this would be an example of an event you would get when my tag, looks like starting with ID 34199E, arrived. I would get this event that said, over my period of 20 seconds, I saw it read 26 times. Its max RSSI was -31, and it occurred on antenna 1. We also add enrichment to that. So as your data flows to the cloud, we're going to receive it, and we'll take a look at the EPC payload. If the EPC is in one of our standards, for example, I use GS1 here, it's going to decode that. So we can already see in red the hex value. You would have received that either way. If you were using your current LLRP library to get tag reads, that hex value would be something you would have received. If you sent it to the cloud, as we saw in inventory, it's already coming through with the hex value. But that doesn't always reveal all of the information behind the bytes. If it's GS1 encoded, in this case, it was a GIAI value, you can see in blue here, that we went ahead and decoded it. Now we support all GS1 AIs that are defined. So you could, if you encoded your EPC in a GS1 standard, for example, we're going to break apart all of those components. Had I had a SGTIN, for example, we wouldn't see a GIAI value here in blue, but instead we would have seen a GTIN value, which would have been its product identifier, and a serial number, which of course is the specific instance of that product. If it was an SSCC, we'd see the shipping container value. So your components can be a pretty long list depending on the complexity of how you've encoded your EPC value. But adding enrichment is one of the values of going to the cloud. You know, your reader and just pulling it off of LLRP with tags red doesn't give you the full summary of what that object was. So if it's in a decodable standard, we'll decode that before we pass it along to you. This also gives you the ability to do more or additional enrichment decoding at the cloud level. So if you get an event that comes in and it's an SGTIN, but you're only looking for GIAIs in your webhook, this event would be ignored and you wouldn't receive it in your data center. So it's an opportunity to do cloud side filtering also. And doing it not just on the data that you would get on the edge, but doing data that is enriched and can only be enriched in the cloud or using a custom application. So now, if I'm so daring, I'm going to try to go back and do a live demo again. I will exit my screen share here, and let's take a look at what it's like to configure a webhook for your reader. So if I am in my data, if I have gone already to platform and Zebra Data Services, I'm going to get the gray menu that you see here, and you can click on Data Services. If I can get a hover out of my mouse. Oh, I'm afraid, give me 1 second here as I sign in because I switched browsers. Of course, I'm going to do that off screen. Give me there. But if you're logged in and are a member of the Cloud Connect program, then you will get a menu under there that will list your devices, which I will show you ever so quickly. So I was just logging into the developer portal. And again, if you go to platforms and Zebra Data Services, under there, you're going to see a list of the devices that are available. So now that I'm logged in, you can see I've got a menu here. I can click on devices. I'm going to get a list of the devices currently registered to me. And then if I want to add a device, which I wanted to show you here, go ahead and click Add Device. Now, we saw this earlier in Stephen's presentation, how you can add a device for, or add a printer for send file to printer. It's the exact same workflow for your reader. The only difference is, of course, I'm going to select a reader. And then I'm going to get my claim token. Let's see here. When you get your claim token for privacy, again, I did update it, but you can see here, I'm going to get a claim token with this screen when I submit. Obviously, I blanked out what the claim token would be, just using your basic, modification of the DOM. But you're going to get that claim token, and then you're going to add it to a reader. So I'll go ahead and grab one of the claim tokens that I have off screen here, and we'll connect to one of my readers. So if you click Add Reader here, you get your claim token. You can go to your reader, paste in your see the token that I'll get off screen. Excuse me here. There it is. See if I find my reader. All these, so you can see now I currently don't have a reader enrolled. Paste in the claim token, click enroll. And now I'm connecting, as you can see here, I happen to be connected to my FX7500. It says it's enrolled in Zebra Data Services. I can check that it's online. First, you need to get an OAuth token. I'm happy to do this publicly because these are secure connections. So I have an OAuth token. You can see it's available for 60 minutes. So if you copy this, I guess during the live call, you'll be able to interact with my reader, but come 60 minutes from now, of course, that token will be disabled. Let's get the device status here. So I'm going to, again, just call the device status API. These are all using Postman collections that are available to GitHub, are available in GitHub. You can see some of those reader management data points that I mentioned earlier, the amount of flash that's available, the CPU, the antennas that are connected, my NTP offset, and of course my uptime. In this case, it says I've been up for 2 days and it looks like no hours. Let's go verify that I'm not full of it. Yep, indeed, I've been up for 2 days, no hours, 12 minutes, and 42 seconds. We call status again, no surprise, we should get a newer uptime value. Here it looks like it's been up for 12 minutes and 2 days, 12 minutes, 50 seconds. If I refresh it here, we'll see about the same. So now that I've got my reader connected and available, I can create a webhook for it. We're going back to the developer portal. I'm going over to subscriptions now, rather than looking at my devices, which are connected. I think we'll see that somewhere here in my thing. Yep, devices. And again, they all have help videos to go with it that are available here. From there, I can go to, let's see, where is it? Add a subscription. So this is going to show you your list of subscriptions here. If I click add subscription, you can see currently I have one subscription for events from home, but I could add a new one for my new reader here. All you need to do is click a subscription. You can give it a name like you saw from my last one. It was from home. You give it the URL where it's going to go to. You can check any of the readers that you'd like it apply to. If you don't check any reader, it does apply to all readers. So you can easily select all of your readers in the fleet simply by not checking any, or you can subscribe to specific ones. And here's where I was talking about the JQ syntax that you can put in. I'm just going to show you this quick link over here where you can do filter. You can see a little write-up on some of the filters you could see. So for example, we have a JSON payload here where we were talking about the EPC value. So if we can scroll down, if we put in EPC equals, this would be an exact match, meaning that webhook would only fire if it was an exact match for this EPC. Perhaps I want to know if it starts with 0, 1. In this case, it would work. Or it contains 165, as we can see here. But also you can operate on other pieces of the payload, like the antenna 1. So you could say if antenna ID equals 1 or 2, then I would like the webhook. But if it happened on antenna 3 or 4, in this case, I don't want to receive data to my webhook. This is a way that you can do filtering on the edge. In the cloud. The filtering on the edge we mentioned is you can do through your reader management. So adding a subscription is really just a matter of going to my data services, subscriptions, and if you have enrolled devices, they will show up here. Again, in order to get these menu options, you do have to be enrolled in the Cloud Connect program. So you're not going to see them on the developer portal today if you've logged in and you're not a member of that program. If you'd like to be a member of that program, I would highly encourage talking to your Zebra account representative. So that's a kind of a quick demo of how you can add and do eventing from your reader. So if you enroll it in Cloud Connect, you can just manage your reader, or if you'd like, then you can get events to the cloud and then be able to receive them in your own data center in your real time. So if I get my slide deck back up here, oh, I guess you guys get the review. The last piece I wanted to touch on is cloud data storage. So early on in this session, we were talking about what it takes to configure a device and deploy it on-prem. And then we talked a little bit about what do we do if it's on-prem? How do we get that data unlocked from the edge and into our cloud? Where we've seen a lot of companies now taking advantage of the cloud for a myriad of reasons, but definitely highlighting the efficiencies of it. Well, getting it to the cloud means you're writing yet another application that's going to catch that data and process it or store it for long term. Zebra also offers cloud data storage, which gives you the ability, as the events flow through the cloud, they can land in cloud data storage, they can go to your data center, or they can do both. So you can process them in your data center as near real time, but you don't have to build a historical engine for them. And when I mention that, what those historical events mean is you can query the current location of the tag. So you can query Zebra Savannah and say, where is this specific tag right now? And it will show you the data within your data set. You can also say, what's the breadcrumb of this tag? You know, given a start date and an end date, where was it along the way, or what readers and locations was it seen at? Or you can query a specific reader to ask what tags are present on the reader right now. Or you can pass it a date and time, and you can say what tags were present on that reader at that point in time. So you get an opportunity to take your data, catch it, operate it on real time, and look into a historical record to query it out at a later time if need be. That's kind of the quick summary of where we're at with Cloud Connect for RFID, the opportunity to manage your reader, get eventing from the reader, and to query historical events from it. To dive in deeper, contact your Zebra account representative, or as Dan mentioned earlier today, if you're one of our partners in Europe, Middle East, or Africa, enter the Cloud Connect Showcase competition. There's a lot of neat prizes there. I wish I was eligible. Xbox, drone, Google Home, all sound great. So if you want to get involved, please continue to follow up with your account representative. I'll be available throughout the remainder of the day for any other questions that come up, and we'll take a little time for Q&A right now.
Okay, Ben, thanks so much. I know we always run into a little snag here and there, but we're doing well. So if there's anybody that has any questions, we've got the Q&A up. We're here, we're ready to rock and roll and ask your questions. So let us know. We'll give it a few moments here. Not a word. Silent after lunch, I guess, huh?
Must have been a good meal break.
Exactly. Can always get a hold of us, get a hold of Ben. You know, if something comes up later on, you can always email us at developer@zebra.com or go to our portal. We're happy to respond.